please, Amanda.
Barons.
Here.
Alt.
Here.
Whitlow.
Here.
Sure.
Here. Everyone has a copy of the agenda there. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Mr. Whitlow, second by Mr. Barons. Any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Do we have any public comments this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on to the EMA report. Mr. Anderson.
Good morning.
Morning.
Everybody has a copy as usual. No incidents, thankfully, to report this month. However, I will address the next paragraph. We have a possibility of an issue with what would be busloads of migrants stopping here in Iroquois County. I received an email from the director of the state IEMA, Alicia Tate Dudeau, last Friday, that was notifying all of the EMA offices within the state the possibility of busloads of out-of-state migrants have been diverted from Chicago, seeking out locations along their route to unload their passengers. And when they do, they're telling them that, hey, you're in Chicago. This was in response to the city of Chicago's decision to pass an ordinance prohibiting bus operators from doing this without prior knowledge and permission. Heavy fines and possible confiscation of the vehicles was attached to that, which has occurred. I also received notification on Friday from Kankakee County in the form of a press release that had actually happened that Friday morning prior to this email being sent out from the state. They received a busload of migrants at the Love's truck stop, found them wandering around on I-57 in all areas, and they were questioned and were basically told by the bus driver that, hey, you're in Chicago. So the gist of the email was letting everybody know that, hey, this could be happening and to make plans for this. We obviously have stops along the way on 57, starting at the Buckley at Rest area, Onarga, Gilman, Clifton, Chabance, but it could be anywhere. They could exit on 24, drive all the way to Watsika and stop at Casey's. They can stop anywhere and unload if that happens. However, I have found out also that they're starting to get smart. My hometown of Elmhurst, they're actually stopping at the Metro train station, unloading them, buying train tickets, and sending them into Chicago via the Metro. So, but this is a possibility. I have made some contingency plans. I notified the sheriff as soon as I saw this, but it's something we need to be aware of. I was at the Mavis meeting last night. This was it wasn't a main topic of discussion, but the few that we're talking about it have said that there are some of the areas that have passed an ordinance already locally that prohibits the practice. I could make that same suggestion. Maybe the county would need to look into that possibility so the sheriff would have the ability to escort buses out. Because if a busload of migrants unloads here in the county, we're going to be responsible for those people, and it's going to be the cost of what would be the sheriff's department for potential security, for housing, for feeding. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's involved with this. I don't necessarily know if I would involve at a sheltering level the churches or the places that I have on my list for emergency sheltering, because first off, we don't know if any of them are vetted for what would be any kind of diseases, and then the potential of what's the end date. How long, if we started to house these people, would be able to keep it, and the expense it could fall upon the county. So,
Who said that we're responsible for it?
well, that's just how it would end up. I mean, we would have the ability then to, at probably the county's expense, to pile them onto buses and to ship them someplace else. But there's going to be some sort of an expense that, you know, we would fall on. I mean, we're not 100% guaranteed that we are, but, you know, they would become like homeless people here within the county that aren't acclimated to our winters. So that's just kind of a proactive approach that some places are taking. So
I'm not saying we wouldn't want to do any of those things, but I'm questioning when you say we have to do it.
well, again, I shouldn't use the word that we have to. We would probably be obligated to. So, but other than that,
He'd know.
yeah, he would know.
He would leave.
Yeah, as he turns around and runs right back out the door.
Short timer.
Since you're walking in and the question has been raised, talking about the potential of migrants coming into the county in busloads. I don't know if you're familiar with what is
We have an
happening.
open policy in Iroquois County for that.
So we would not be responsible
Check the
for what would be housing or anything of that? Would the county be responsible for that?
No.
So?
No.
Okay, so what do we,
But we would be responsible, just as any other person is here, to make sure.
We have homeless people all the time coming to Iroquois County.
Okay,
Treat them as no different. It's a humanitarian thing, not a government responsibility.
well, I'm glad that you were here to define that. So, other,
That's how I see it.
okay, other agencies have been passing ordinances to prohibit it within their jurisdictions the way Chicago did. So that was one suggestion that was brought up.
Sure, I
last night.
mean, yeah, the board can do whatever they think is right, but it's not necessary. It's not something that we have to do.
Well, I'm glad he was here to define that. And so, it's in here, you can read a little bit more if it's there. If you want the actual email from Alicia Taylor, I'll be more than happy to forward it on.
If you have ordinances of other counties that passed, I think it would be something we'd want to take a look at for sure.
I can look into that and see if anything has actually been published. This has been pretty quick, and so I can see if others that have actually and made it available yet. I'm sure if it is, it is. But,
Okay.
okay, moving forward from that, National Hazard Mitigation Plan, again, moving forward. The date is January 18th, coming up. Everybody's seen emails. I encourage everybody, again, talk to the people within your districts. Encourage them to come out.
When you say everybody has seen the emails, I haven't seen any of them.
You did not receive, the people on the board have not received anything from what would be American Environmental. Okay, I will double check with them because they were given the lists. It's out of my hand, it's into their hands. I'll make sure that they are aware and they will go ahead and forward it on.
I'm not aware that any board members received any communication from them.
It will be coming from Mr. Ken Runkle from American Environmental. I will make sure that those get to you because he was given that list specifically as well as everybody else. Again, it's important that people attend that. And encourage the people within your districts to attend. The response has been very good so far. Our EMP grant, the first quarter closes out. I'll be submitting that for what would be reimbursement. Had a very busy month of training. It's all spelled out here. I'm one class shy of obtaining my PDF certificate from the state of Illinois. Which was a requirement that I had to obtain within 2 years of my taking this position. I should have it done right after the first of the year. I've attended committees as usual. The next LEPC meeting will be Wednesday, January 10th. I went to the Mavis meeting last night. Again, encouraging everybody to attend the meeting coming up on the 18th. And again, the response has been pretty good. Attended the Amateur Radio Club meeting last Thursday. Thank them for their support to the county. And again, I'm encouraging volunteers from that group as the numbers keep climbing. Severe weather. We have been approved for a severe weather spotting class here in Iroquois County. It will happen February 15th. Free class open to the public. Same class that is taught for the Skywarn spotters. Information again is out there. I can make sure that everybody is included in that email list as well. More than welcome to attend. It's going to be an interesting class. It always is. If you've had it in the past, the National Weather Service recommends at least once every 2 years that you attend to be kept fresh on it. I was originally scheduled to go up yesterday to Romeoville to visit the National Weather Service. They had to cancel at the last minute. I've rescheduled for next week. It's the last step in the process of getting the county designated as a storm-ready county within the National Weather Service. All the other boxes have pretty much been checked. Going to visit in person to the National Weather Service office is a requirement.
Where is this class gonna be held?
Oh, the storm spotting class is going to be held in Watsika. It's going to be held at what was the old health
At the
department
town
building.
square?
No, it's going to be at what was the old health department building. It was a youth center. It's now known as the Hub. It's going to be a community center. We have to have a building capable of seating at least 100 people. That's one of the places that I can get in for free. And so, but yes, that's where it'll be. But once I attend this in-person meeting with the National Weather Service, we should have everything completed. And we should be able to receive our designation as a storm ready county. which will involve press releases and a sign hanging and dealing with what would be other elected officials and yourselves, whoever would like to attend. I'll let you know when we get to that. Background checks for my EMA volunteers are complete. The list was presented to Chairman Scher, who approved them. We've got a roster of 11. We had our second meeting. We started to discuss more of the communications needs within the county. And we started discussing what's going to be the upcoming training for my volunteers. The severe weather spotting class is going to be a requirement for those that are going to be part of the Skywarn program, as well as dates for them to achieve their amateur radio license, which is also going to be a requirement. Another future training for right now we included damage assessment, basic first aid, and CPR. These are classes that we'll discuss and we'll start scheduling. I'm continuing to work on the radio room within the EOC. When it's done, it's going to be very nice and very capable of handling anything that we would need if something were to happen to ICOM and CANCOM. Social media, same thing, keep making my Facebook posts. Been following up on a lot of boil orders. There have been boil orders issued once again in Gilman this morning, same location. But I keep trying to follow up with those, and I also try to follow up with they've been listed. That concludes my report.
Okay, does anyone have questions? Seeing none, thank you.
You guys.
Moving along, we'll go to the committee chair reports. We'll begin with Mr. Barnes and the management committee.
Well, we'll probably just talk about the morgue some more, and I don't know if there's much else.
Is this the meeting when you take up bids for lawnmower?
No, I think we might approve, send it out for
We
bid.
sent out for bid, we'll open them in February.
So
It's not, it's for next February meeting. then, probably.
Yeah, we
Take up the
haven't.
Bids,
we haven't sent it out for bid yet.
okay,
So, yeah, if you got anybody interested,
you do,
I have the info, Charlie.
okay.
Okay. Moving on, I don't see anyone here from the tax committee or the health committee, so Mr. Whitlow, what about judicial?
We passed a resolution to the assistance of the appellate prosecutor for state's attorney's office. They actually provide training, right, Jim?
They do, yes.
Yeah,
They do, and they handle all of our appeals.
appeals,
They do property tax appeals as well.
which is a real bargain with what it's really costing us, you know.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't hire somebody to do all
It
the
went up
things.
$1,000, but we still have a bargain on that.
Yes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, by far. That's one thing we got going, and we talked about the flock cameras for different towns. They put the license plate readers up here and there. I guess we've got one village that denied them this recently. Narga doesn't want anything to do with them, I guess, according to what I was told. So that's one village that's not, just totally refused it. For some reason, I have no idea.
Cissna Park has got two, and I think Buckley's gonna get one.
Yeah, I guess Gilman's got a few.
Yeah.
Then Officer Medina graduated from corrections. That's about all I have.
Okay, Charlie, you have something for highway?
And we plan to review the contract with Mr. Greg Perkinson for combining the two counties, Ford and Iroquois County engineering for another year, based on the fact that we still want to have anybody to replace Mr.
I thought we approved that already last month.
We have discussed it anyway. I think it's changed to a year at a time for both counties. I think it should be that anyway.
Did Ford County changed theirs to a year? It was February 28th.
Well, I was told that it's been changed for 1-year contract. It can be discontinued anytime this thing is
Right.
felt to be fulfilled and adequately
Okay, well,
contained by a new man.
nobody told me it was changed.
Well, it's been changed.
Okay, sounds good. Mr. Barnes, do you have anything about finance committee?
we'll probably talk about money.
Talk about money, that's good,
Talk about snow, it's coming down.
very good. Okay, moving along to chairman comments, the only thing I want to call everyone's attention to today is that you have new monthly claim forms in your mailbox here, and they reflect an increase from the IRS and the mileage allowance. When you're filling them out for this meeting today, you should be claiming the mileage allowance for this year and not the new one. But everything next week and beyond will be with the new one. So pick up your new forms, they're in the mailbox here, and we'll proceed accordingly. So that's all I've got on that. That takes us to the highlight of the day, the Paid Leave Workers Act. Everyone has a copy of the act in front of them. I think the way I'd like to begin our discussion would be if Joe would provide us with some information that she's learned about the thing and serve as a kickoff point.
Well, what I have for you is I contacted our insurance, company to inquire a couple questions about this paid leave act, and they sent me the information that I had emailed everybody, and you also should have a hard copy to take a look at. I had a couple questions on it. Do we have to include any of our contractual employees and per diem employees? I'm speaking primarily about animal control and how that would happen. And also, if I'm reading this right, and I am by all means not a lawyer, do we have to change, right, do we have to change our, time that employees start accruing from 6 months to their first day of employment? So, I guess Jim can better interpret what was sent to us and obviously what we need to do, and I'm curious to see what your opinion is.
Yeah, on the contractual employees, I mean, we, particularly with animal control, we've run into that in the past when we've had trouble with employees, you know, we say they're contractual, but then we treat them as employees.
Mhm.
So, we gotta make that distinction, and I don't think we ever do. So if we're just going on what we've traditionally done with how we treat animal control employees and people like that, they're employees. I mean, this is what it is. So they would fall under the act as part-time employees. I know, John, when I talked to you briefly yesterday, you had a question, you know, do county board members fall within this category? And the answer is no, because you're elected officials, and all elected officials really, you're your own boss. You have your own authority. You know, as frustrating as it is for me, I can't tell you what to do. And even though I always want more money in my budget, that's up to you. But, and the same goes for other elected officials. So all of the elected officials really are co-employers with the county board. So we're not employees, so we don't come under the act. But, you know, department heads, I would think appointed officials probably are like elected officials. I mean, somebody like Mia or Greg Perkinson, I mean, you're appointed to a specific term, and you really can't be removed unless, you know, there's a statutory mechanism for removing appointed officials like that from their jobs. So I don't think they fall under that act as well, because they're an employer. But somebody like Jill, even though she's a department head, or Amanda, those are created positions, so they fall under the behest of the county board. So if you want to eliminate their positions, you can at any time. I'm advocating that because I love what they do, and they do a great job. But they would fall under that act. Amanda and Jill and all employees under the elected and appointed officials.
So it says it takes effect January 1, but the final rule doesn't come out till March, so how does that work?
Well, we wait till March.
So do we have to start accruing
I think so. You know, you look at the footnote here, you know, the HB 4190 was filed in late October. If the bill becomes law, we change the effective date to January 1, or yeah, not January, July 1 of 2024. There's, however, 3 days left in the legislative veto session, which was in November. If the bill fails, then the Paid Leave with All Workers Act becomes effective January 1. So it's effective, probably should start accruing time, but then how we apply that, we have to wait until March 31 for the final rules as to how we apply it.
Which, well, it says in there anyway that they can't start using it until March.
Correct.
So,
The way I understand this then is that all of our part-time employees, like the household person in this building and Chris Drake's brother that helps with the snow removal, any of these kind of people, we're gonna have to fall under this act. We're gonna have to give them every 40 hours that they work, which could be over a 6-month span, for example, but they get 1 hour of paid vacation. And that would be at their, whatever their regular rate of pay is.
Unless we make them, you know, so we do our rules differently or treat them differently than we have in the past. I mean, you know, is Marty Drake, I mean, he's really more seasonal. I don't know, it
But
depends.
it includes seasonal.
It does include seasonal. I mean, it depends on how, if you want to make them strictly a contractual employee, then we need to write up a contract and really spell out that they're a contractual employee. We never do that. We say they're contractual employees, but they're really not. So if we want to be specific, we need to do a contract and have a contract with Marty and whoever else we want to consider being a contractual employee.
but I've run into that. If they're a contractual employee, then all you can say is, this is a job, go do it. You can't tell them, do this, this, and this.
Well, you generally.
Because once you do
beginning
this,
and
this,
end,
and
that's
this.
what it does, and then you just have to renew it if.
No, I mean,
Renegotiate.
for actually the job they do. If you do more than say, hey, go clear the parking lot, if you say it has to be done at this time, this way, whatever, then according to the IRS, that becomes an employee, not a contractual
I
employee.
think they
Because,
ran into that with animal control, and that's
Yeah.
why we put them on the payroll.
yeah. Because once you start telling them specifically how to do their job, the IRS considers them an employee.
I don't disagree with that at all, and, because a contractual employee, you're giving them discretion. You know, as to how they do their job, because they're that professional doing whatever they're supposed to be doing, but, right, as soon as you start dictating what the job is and how it's to be done, then they become an employee.
It says they can, a full-time employee is accrued 40 hours at the beginning of the year, and they can accrue up to 80 hours and roll over, but they can only use 40 hours in a year.
Yeah, so use it or lose it.
Yeah, it basically, if they don't use the 40 hours, there's no way for them to recover it. If
I
I,
disagree.
uh,
I don't disagree, that's why we're gonna be interested to see what the rules are.
I mean, a part-timer, I could see where, because there's, the way I read it, can be accrued, is accrued over time, not right at the beginning of the year. So they could actually take extra time before they've accrued time, and then quit before the year's over, and they could possibly use it, but a full-time employee could.
I guess I'm curious to know, like, in the case of, let's say, animal control and the bailiffs, and I use them because they're, you know, got different rates of pay. We pay them, you know, $100 for the, $150 now for the bailiffs, and then, the animal control officers get $55 for investigations and $85 for any pickup or transportations. So it's not really like an hourly wage that we pay them. So I'm just, I'm a little confused as to how we're gonna track or how that would work with per diem paid employees.
I mean, they can keep track of the time though, right? I mean, that would be how they'd have to do it, is keep
Yeah.
track of the time, and then turn that time into you.
Yeah.
Or Amanda.
And then would you just do the standard hourly rate? Because they don't get an hourly pay, they just get a per diem of 55 or 85. Depending on what they get, similar to the regulars.
It would have to be at least at minimum wage, I would think.
Well, I think the way we talked about it, like the way our sick time is accrued is 3.231
Yes.
for a 7-hour employee and 3.6925 or something for 8 hours. So if this is 40 hours for, during a 12-month period, we would divide out whatever a 40-hour
Right.
is. I don't think that it affects those of us that already start accruing.
Right.
So for those that are the part-timers, we would just divide out whatever the 40 hours is in a 12-month period, and they would just start accruing that
Right.
immediately, whatever during that 12-month period is. And I think that would cover the part-timers or the,
Mhm.
yeah. I think it's just our part-time, I think that's how we kind of talked about it a little bit, that they would just immediately start accruing that for, and I don't know if we wanted to create a new leave code just for paid leave, or if we just want it to be another sick code.
I don't think we need to create another code, because we can track it as long as they're getting the paid leave.
Right.
My only thing is we may need to amend or change or whatever the handbook,
Yeah,
or because they don't start accruing time until they've been employed for 6 months, and this is saying we have to start doing it as of day one.
right. I don't remember if we got an answer as to if we need to go back. Did we need to, no, because it's January 1.
No.
But I
And they
think
still
that's,
can't use it until they start accruing it. Let's say somebody gets hired January 1st, they start accruing it, they can use it for 90 days.
Did I read it wrong? The way I read it, if you're a full-time employee, January 1, they've got 40 hours.
You either do
You
a,
could front load it or you
Right.
don't have to.
you don't have to.
I wouldn't front load it, I mean,
no,
because who's to say you front load it, give them 40 hours, they work 5 days, they quit, then you gotta pay them.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought,
there were two different options. You can front load it or you can accrue it over time.
okay,
Yeah. Because I mean, I'm just worried about, if we get somebody who starts, works 3 days, and then they leave, you still have to compensate them for their time.
But I think I read that it's not something that we pay out. It's not like vacation where they quit and then we pay them for that 40 hours or whatever they accrued. Which is why I think it would be best just to accrue that 40 hours each pay period that they work, like we do our sick.
Mm-hmm.
So in the matter of like animal control, whether it's 55 or 85 or the $15 for animal boarding, just take those 40 hours, divide it out in a 12-month period, and then it's whether it's 3, I don't know what it would amount to, I haven't looked at that, but so many hours per pay period, or per month, whatever would be the easiest, like how we do with our sick time. That would be the easiest.
Are we gonna have to redo our union contracts as well?
No,
There's nothing in there that has to be changed?
no, so existing union contracts stay the same until the end of the contract, then that has to be faithfully renegotiated. So nothing changes as far as existing contracts.
What about the part-time correctional officers? Are they gonna have to fall under this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so really, as of now, it's gonna affect any per diem employee, part-timers, myself, Amanda, Chris Drafe.
We have snowplow workers at the highway
Chief
department
deputies.
that'll fall under this?
But they're already accruing time, so.
Wait, I didn't hear that, John. Your question, I didn't hear your question.
So I'm just trying to identify all the different
Um,
part-time workers we have. We have some at the highway department, we have correctional officers.
Is,
It encompasses a lot more than just a couple people.
Right.
because we're already accruing
Yeah, I-
time off.
The health department has a number of part-time employees as well.
I guess one of the questions I have is, whatever changes and so forth that we want to incorporate in a policy, is this something we should draft up and then bring forward at our meeting next month? Is that appropriate, or,
I think the sooner we get on this, the better we'll be.
I mean, we don't have anything drafted today that
Right.
we can really act on, so.
Right.
I think if we can put something together that encompasses the things that we have to do and how we're gonna do it, are we gonna have to have time cards, or how are we gonna keep an active? I can see situations where somebody might say, well, hey, wait a minute, I had more time than you're giving me credit for, or I didn't get this or that, and then where does that go?
I think it's on the employee to keep track of their
Yeah.
time and to submit it to whoever they report to.
Well, the statute says that we have to keep records, we have to keep them for 3 years.
I don't disagree, but, so the records that are given to us, we have to keep.
Yeah.
I think the obligation to initiate that is on the employee. If we're talking, part-time employees or contractual employees, that's on them. Because we don't know when they're out, we don't know what they're doing and when, so I think that obligation initially is on them to submit documentation to whoever they report to that they've worked.
Well, they must be submitting something already because they get paid.
Right.
Some of what's being submitted isn't as formal as maybe it ought to be, and that's part of the
Right.
reason I'm bringing the question up. The other part is, if an employee, let's say Jim Jones works over here in whatever department you want to talk about, comes down with COVID, and he makes an agreement with his supervisor that he's gonna work at home because there's things he can do productively. Who verifies or keeps track of that time, and does that play into the picture?
Yeah, if he wants to be paid for it, he needs to submit documentation to whoever he reports to.
I think all these things need to be codified into
Right.
our policy.
I agree.
They need to be clearly understood by us as well as the employees.
Right.
Are there any other things relative to this legislation that we still need to talk about or that we've overlooked? I think this thing is pretty significant, really. It's another example of where Springfield knows more than we do and dropping a big load on us.
Another unfunded mandate.
You mean they're not gonna pay for all this?
Yeah, but they'll take it out of the sales tax.
There you go. Good old sales tax. That brings me to another point, but I guess I should have brought it up in the chairman's comments. You probably have all seen what Ford County is doing. They're putting in 0.5% sales tax
For the schools. Well, they're putting it on the ballot. I don't know if they're-
It probably won't pass, but if, when it does, which it probably will eventually, it'll come over here. Okay, I guess if there's nothing else that we need to talk about on this, who's gonna put all this together? I guess would be the next question I've got.
State's attorney doesn't have anything to do. He just sits over in his office all day.
See my giant arrow on this?
Does that work?
I volunteered you and I, Jill.
Huh?
I volunteered you and I.
Oh, it was gonna fall on us.
Because you guys have nothing better to do.
Nothing better to do, trust me.
Well, I guess that's fine with me. The only comment I would make is that certainly engage Mr. Devine in any process for approval of what you're doing in advance, so that when we get it at this committee next month, we don't have to go backwards.
Be happy to help.
So. Okay, I guess that takes care of the paid leave. Next on our agenda is continuing to talk about the county code manual, so we'll go into that.
You're in trouble.
Sneaking out.
Guidelines for investigating kennel license complaints. That's what we're on. You gonna stick around for it?
This is where we stopped.
Yeah,
6-325.
That's the last page.
I didn't bring my
Is it?
code book though.
You didn't come through, oh, it's right there.
I know, I didn't put it there.
We can turn to it for you too.
Yeah, it's right.
All good. What?
I already had that wrote down before they even nominated us.
Oh, yeah. I got the look, so I knew it was coming out.
I already wrote it down.
Because you looked at me when you said who's gonna do this, and you looked at me, and I looked at you. I knew it was coming out.
And I tried Jim's paper trick and it didn't work.
Yes.
You don't
All
have
right.
the right degree.
What?
You don't have the right degree for it.
Let's see if we can make a little progress here on the code book. Last month, we left off on page CD 6:31, which is section 6325 guidelines for investigating kennel license complaints. The first item says there that the chairperson of the planning and zoning committee will decide to investigate a complaint against a kennel license for violation of their conditional variance based upon relevant zoning regulations and or the ordinance regulating kennels. Complaints may be based upon nuisance complaint by any aggrieved county resident, verifiable report of a violation to the zoning office or the animal control office, the report of zoning or animal control inspectors of violations discovered during routine inspections. So what that's saying is that the investigation of the complaint has to be an act of the planning and zoning committee's chairman or chairperson. That's the way we want it to be.
Well, I'm sure they could. I mean, it may be under them, but that they have people in zoning that they can say, yeah, we need to go take it, and they just need to oversee it.
Okay, but when it says when they decide to investigate, means that no investigation will begin until that decision is made.
Right, well, and that person can make that
In
decision.
other words, if Jill was aware of a complaint right now, she was not, can't do anything until the chairman of the committee gives her the authority to do it. So that's why I'm saying it's just the way you want it to be. That's the way Jill wants it to be.
That's fine with
It's
me.
just a phone call.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine with me. Like I said, we don't, I have them inspect once a year because that wasn't being done prior. So I just have them go out and visit with the kennel license holders and see what their operation is and provide any recommendations that may need to be given. We didn't, to give you an idea, with Paulette Waltz, we didn't just go out there whenever free willy-nilly. We went out once the committee asked for animal control to do so. So, I mean, that's fine with us, but.
You're talking about routine inspections, and that's fine. On the other hand, we had an instance last year, as you know, where we had a complaint, and it was investigated and handled, but it was not done by the chairperson of the zoning committee. This person didn't say, let's go investigate this complaint.
Which complaint was that?
Like I said, it was Terry Van Vicker.
Bad Bunker?
Yeah.
She's not a kennel license holder. This has to do with kennel license.
She never had a kennel license and she was doing all that?
No,
So
she
she
did
just
not
had
have a kennel
animals.
license. And that was handled through,
If she
or
had
not
all
through,
that-
but it was handled with the Illinois Department of Agriculture because
She
she had
had
one of
all
those
those
cats.
animals without a kennel license, that's a violation.
She only had one dog. Our kennel license only covers dogs and cats.
She's got 6 dogs right now.
Well, nobody's reported that to us.
I'll talk to you about it. I understand Linda's already been trying to catch her, and every time she gets there, she's not home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has been following up on her since a couple years ago when the animal control and Illinois Department of Ag came in and confiscated, I guess, some of her animals that were being neglected.
Okay, well, if we're all in agreement to leave it the way it is, we'll move on to section B. A written report by the inspector, if required, should contain but not be limited to the following. A list of specific allegations should include the type of complaint, nuisance, that is noise, odor, escaping dogs, etc. Violation of the conditional variance is related to type of kennel, example, selling or adopting out dogs, and the variance did not provide for this type of kennel. Violations is related to animal welfare, failure to provide adequate housing and food. Last one is violation as related to illegal activity, that is failure to register dogs or vaccinate for rabies, or the licensee has provided false information on the application. List must also contain the date, time, place of the violation, and any monetary damages, personal injury, or property damage that are incidental to the complaint. This section okay the way it is? No reason to make any changes? Go down to number 2, any available physical evidence, video, audio tapes, photographs, police reports, etc. should be referenced in the report, as well as the names, addresses, and phone numbers of any complainants and witnesses. 3 is authorized to do so, and with notification of the licensee, a special inspection of the facility for evidence to support or disprove the allegations may be necessary, and continued monitoring may be required. Is that something that number 3, if the licensee doesn't want to come on their property to make that inspection, where does that leave you? Can you get the sheriff to come with
If they
you?
have a license, usually in the license it gives permission.
Is that right?
I don't know, you'd have to ask the assessment office because I don't issue those licenses, so I'm not sure what the documentation specifically says.
And basically, when you get a license, you are agreeing to all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So if that means inspections, I mean,
that means one of the rules should say then that you are allowed, have to allow inspectors to come in on your property to inspect. Number 4, the inspector may be authorized by the chairperson to make a preliminary finding on his opinion as to the validity of the complaint, and if warranted, make recommendations for corrections. If the licensee agrees with the finding recommendations, the inspector must give a reasonable time for corrections to be made, at which time a re-inspection may be required to verify compliance. Then the last one is number 6. If the licensee does not accept the inspector's decision or refuses to make the required corrections, the inspector's written report will be submitted to the chairperson of Planning and Zoning Committee for a decision. to whether or not a hearing before the committee is warranted. I guess one thing that occurs to me in reading through this, the first sentence that we did up there said that the chairperson of planning and zoning committee is the one that decides to have an investigation. If the investigation goes through the process, it sounds like then it falls on the inspector as far as if the license holder makes the corrections that are not. I guess the inspector is supposed to submit a report to the planning and zoning, does it really say that here?
It did someplace.
Implied, I'm sure.
The inspector's written report will be submitted to the chairperson.
So he's gonna know exactly what happened.
If the report's written completely.
Okay. Sounds like it's something that could take place over a long period of time. If there's corrections have to be made, it
Right.
could take a few months to get.
Yeah, it says has to give them a reasonable amount of time to do it, so. Because if it's anything major where they have to do construction or whatever, it will take a while.
Okay, I guess the last one in there about the fees, there's nothing that really there of any significance, so I think that should take care of the animal section. The next one has to do with building codes. And I think, if you recall correctly, I suggested that the Planning and Zoning Committee should review this section and make recommendations to us. They have not yet undertaken that, but that's something that we will hold in abeyance, and we can move on to chapter 10, which is civil emergencies. Emergency management, where is that guy?
You had an emergency.
In an emergency? Well, he's not here, that's for sure.
You want me to call or text him?
I think we can get started. See where it leads us. If we have questions, we can get in touch with him. First page is CD 10:3. Article 2, emergency management. Division 1, generally. Purchases and contracts. The county board may, on recommendations of the county coordinator of the county emergency services and disaster agency, authorize any purchase or contracts necessary to place the county in a position to combat effectively any disaster resulting from the explosion of any nuclear or other bomb or missile, or to protect the public's health and safety, protect property, and provide emergency assistance to victims in the case of such disaster. B, in the event of enemy caused or other disaster, the coordinator is authorized on behalf of the county to procure such services, supplies, equipment as may be necessary for such purposes in view of the exigency without regard to the statutory procedures or formalities normally prescribed by law pertaining to county contracts or obligations. So what this is saying is that anytime that the EMA person, Mr. Anderson, wants to buy something, he should be talking with us about it, get our approval. Unless it's an enemy-related thing, and even that says if the county board is meeting at that time, we'll be subject to those restrictions and so forth. So, that section meet with everybody's approval? Need any changes, clarification? guess an example of that is this hazard mitigation plan that he did the initial legwork on it, but brought the contract here, we reviewed it, we approved it, I signed it, all that. So that's an example of what this is talking about. Okay, the next one says emergency interim successor. The terms shall be defined, set out in the Illinois Emergency Interim Executive Successions Act. Order of designation. In the event the county board chairperson or vice chairperson is unavailable during a time of attack or disaster, as that term is defined pursuant to subsection A of this section, then the powers and duties of the office of county board chairperson shall be exercised and discharged by the following persons in the order specified. First, chairperson of the finance committee. Second, chairperson of the health committee. Third, chairperson of the judicial committee. And such persons are hereby designated as emergency interim successors in the order set out above. Are there any changes needed with that? I think that covers a wide range of things, not just in the event of an emergency. I think if there were a situation, I guess you could use all kinds of different examples, but if there's a situation where the chairman and vice chairman are not able to function, then we follow the same order.
What if one of these chairperson is able to function but doesn't want to do it, and it falls to the next one, or are they required to do it?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I guess it isn't defined here. Maybe it's implied that if any time if a person doesn't want to discharge what their duty they're supposed to, we go to the next person in line.
I think if one decides not to do it or doesn't feel he's capable to do it, you just pass over that person going on to the next one on the list. You have to. What else can you do?
I guess you would have to, but I think you might have some pause for thought going ahead as to whether if somebody didn't want to do the job, maybe
You might want to get an
So-
agreement ahead of time.
So, say the finance chairman doesn't want to do it, does it go to the health committee chairman, or does it
That's what it
fall
says.
on the vice chairman of the finance committee?
it would go to the health committee.
Yeah, doesn't say anything about a vice chairman.
But you might, what I'm saying is, and this is an adjunct to this, but you might want to consider getting a new chairman of the finance committee if you didn't want
Right, if,
to do something like this. But that's later, that's not.
but how do you do that if the chairman and the vice chairman are not available to appoint a new chairman?
There must be a set procedure in removing somebody as chairman.
I think it goes on here because the next part talks about the powers and duties until the vacancy is filled, so.
Okay,
The emergency interim, and we'll get into that. Emergency interim successor shall exercise the powers and discharge the duties of the office of county board chairperson until such time as a vacancy which may exist shall be filled in accordance with the Constitution or statutes, or until the county board chairperson or vice chairperson or a preceding emergency interim successor again becomes available to exercise the powers and discharge the duties of said office. I think that's the answer to your question. Again, the circumstances involved is gonna have a lot to do with how that would be handled. For example, if it was because of illness or maybe an automobile accident or something of that type where it's a temporary situation. And then when that person is recovered, they can assume their duties again. If there's a death or something of that sort where that isn't gonna happen, then you got a different pathway. Okay, let's go on to D, oath compliance with law at the time of their designation, emergency interim successor shall take such oath as may be required for them to exercise the powers, discharge the duties of the office to which they may succeed, notwithstanding any other provision of law. No such person as a prerequisite to the exercise of the powers or discharge the duties of an office to which he succeeds shall be required to comply with any other provision of law relative to taking office. So I guess that what that means is that if this were to take place, and let's say the chairman of the finance committee was gonna be taken over, then he has to go see the county clerk and take the oath. She'll probably hold a rolling pin in her hand while she gives it to him.
That's what I do.
Conditions for authorization of position. The persons herein authorized to act as emergency interim successors are empowered to exercise the powers and discharge the duties of county board chairperson as herein authorized only after an attack upon the United States or during a disaster within the county. Those terms are defined in the subsection of this section. That one okay? Next one is continuation of designated capacities until such time as the persons designated as emergency interim successors are authorized to exercise the powers and discharge the duties of county board chairperson. Such persons shall serve in their designated capacities at the pleasure of the county board and may be removed or replaced by said county board at any time with or without cause. I'm not quite sure I understand what that's saying there.
Yeah, and I could see if the emergency's over or the chairman becomes available again, that would be a reason to remove them, but otherwise, I don't see.
Well, but this is until such time as the persons are designated as this is before you become an interim successor. Well, let's say while you're the chairman of the finance committee, since that's what we're using as an example. You said you,
Are you referring to subsection F here,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
Hmm?
Are you referring to section F here?
yes,
May I provide a comment?
yes,
I think what this is referring to is the emergency interim successor starts exercising their duties, they take the oath, Brian threatens them, and they're doing their job. But the county board can then choose to meet and appoint a new interim chairperson. I think that's what this is saying.
well, I don't.
But in the meantime, before the county board meets, the following sections that you guys have just reviewed are to implement an emergency successor, so that way the board doesn't have to meet before someone starts fulfilling the duties of that
I don't
role.
think I'm seeing it quite that way. Green, do you have any thoughts on this?
I don't, I'm sorry.
I mean, to me, I'm confused by what it means.
well, the situation he laid out would make sense.
But I'm not saying it doesn't, but I'm just saying I don't believe that what it says is what he's saying.
All it really means is the county board can step in using this as only a emergency situation and they replace it with more continuous operation designated by the county board.
I think this comes directly from statute, and it's what was referred to as the Emergency Interim Executive Succession Act. So it's probably confusing because it's statute, I'm just throwing that out there. But I don't know that changing it, to make it clear or anything like that, because again, I believe it's quoting the statute.
Let me say this if I may, if this helps. Joe Blow is the chairman of the finance committee. He is designated as an emergency successor under this, but he's not filling that job. He's only filling the job as finance committee chairman. And he continues to do that throughout his term. However, the county board can remove him from being chairman of the finance committee with or without cause. Does that make sense? No?
But this is more
Because
moving them up to
But
chairman.
This says until such time. In other words, this is before you become in the office. You're designated, when you're the chairman of the finance committee, you're designated as an emergency interim successor in the line of succession. And you continue in that place, but you continue to discharge the duties as finance chairman. While you're the finance chairman, the county board can remove you from that with or without cause. If you're designated, if you become the county board chairman through this, I don't think the county board can remove you with or without cause from that. I don't think that's what this is saying.
Well, this progression of who takes over is as an interim, not as a permanent county board chairman. So if something happened to the chairman, vice chairman, and the finance chairman then would be in charge, then the full board could actually meet and appoint a new county board chairman and not just an interim chairman. So, once the county board appoints someone permanently,
I think that depends on the circumstances. Again, if it's, let's say the county board chairman and vice chairman are in an automobile accident, they're gonna be laid up for 2 months. So the chairman of the finance committee is gonna take over during that time.
right,
The county board isn't gonna appoint.
And this is strictly in an emergency.
yeah, only if there's.
I mean, it's only in an emergency, it's not for like a Tuesday, if you guys are in an accident and you don't make the county board meeting. We're talking emergency situation. So then that would give the finance person the ability to act as,
As in
chairman of the board.
section, if bombs are falling.
in an emergency, that's what we're
Marshal
talking
law
about.
anyway.
Sheriff will be in charge.
If the chairman and the vice chairman are in an accident and can't function during 2 months, I mean, who's gonna be in charge?
There is succession of that already, isn't there?
Well, that's what we're looking at.
No,
You're
this
looking
is
at
an
an emergency situation.
This is not regular succession.
I think they're the same.
I don't think that they are, because I think that it's a vote upon the county board if the chairman and vice can't succeed, which is back.
Because if I recall correctly, if the chairman is unable to fulfill his duties as chairman, actually the vice chairman will take over temporarily, but does not become chairman, there is a vote.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's the same.
No, this
No.
is strictly an
This-
emergency. So say a bomb drops on your house.
This is, in a normal situation, the vice chairman would take over until such time as the board meets and appoints a new chairman, which may or may not be the vice chairman. In this, it's an automatic, this next person's in charge until something happens. Am I right?
That's how I'm reading it, is the succession will take place and the, first person of county board, chairman and vice chairman are not available, then it goes to finance committee, health committee, judicial committee. And then if those people are not performing in that capacity as the board sees fit, they can have an emergency meeting and put someone else in charge, remove or replace. And then I think this last part talks about you can replace the finance chairman with someone that you want as chairman of the finance committee at any point in time, and then that person would be the successor in an emergency situation.
I think it would be great if it was stated a lot clearer than what it is.
I feel like it's clear.
Talk to your state rep. So since, I mean, there's not much we can do with it since it does refer to state statute.
Our state rep is out farming. right
Is this
now.
from the ordinance that passed in 2014?
Excuse me,
Is this from the ordinance that passed in 2014?
that's the county code that was.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess the question becomes, do we wanna leave this the way it is? Do we wanna see if we wanna get any clarification further, possibly from Mr. Devine or someone else, or do we wanna move on?
I don't think we can change it now. If we want clarification as to what it means, that's a different.
Yeah, I think it has to remain the same.
Consult with Jim,
Well, you can do-
clarification.
If we want clarification, that can be added in here, it's not gonna change the meaning or intent.
Secretary of
This
State.
isn't say this is quoting state statute, this is following state statute, this is not.
State law reference.
I realize that, doesn't say it's quoting state law. We're not changing state law, we're trying to clarify it.
Sure, yeah.
You can't change state law.
No.
You go to the
You
state
can
law.
ask the
and
state attorney what he thinks.
Yes,
Yes.
and do what he says.
If he says it's okay to clarify or whatever, then you can bring that back to us.
Okay, make a note of it that way, man. I just wanna make sure we all understand what it means, cause
No, that's
some of the words
we
that
don't
are in there
understand
today
what it means,
mean one thing
right?
and.
Point is, we don't understand what it means. That's why we gotta go to the Secretary of State for
Until
his
such time as what's wrong.
ruling of what it means.
Okay, let's move on here to the next section, emergency management
The attorney
agency.
might give a different interpretation at the time of the emergency.
Hey, roll like, and have the emergency at a different time.
I'll tell you what, why don't we end with it here, because then we can go on with emergency management agency next month, and we can have Mr. Anderson stay with us when we do that.
How close are we to the conclusion of this?
Look at his book.
Jeez.
We are maybe at 20% done.
Perhaps.
10 years we'll be here, still cutting your little book.
Are you gonna be here that long? Oh. I think some sections of this book move a little quicker than.
How are you?
Okay.
100-year-old man.
I'm
Saying,
saying,
well, back on December 20,
you're okay with, we'll end here?
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
end or just continue. Say end is fine with
Something good, do it, Charlie.
me. We'll find a 100-year-old guy to do it.
okay, we don't need to go to executive session today. Appointments will be made at the county board. Correspondence, we have some interesting correspondence. First of which is our friends at the Department of Agriculture have suggested that we spend some more of our money to do their work, called weed control. We are required to appoint a supervisor of weed control, and he is to tour the county constantly looking for weeds.
Noxious weed.
That's right. If he spies a noxious weed, he's supposed to take action.
The way it had that years ago.
Normally we get a letter like this every year, and normally it winds up in the inactive file. But you need to be aware of it. This next one was sent to me. I don't know why, but it should go to Mia because it has to do with the board of review. See that she may have a copy of it, it doesn't indicate such, so we'll see that it gets taken care of.
Said we're supposed to.
And we have one from the
We've never set one up for,
state Supreme Court indicating that
I will not be set up to it.
everything was Mr. Latham's
They
report.
had them
so
years
we'll
ago.
just have a shot.
I bet they didn't put them
No
together
action
this way.
required there. That takes care of the correspondence. Do we have some claims here today? We need to, I guess I should say, has everybody looked at the claims yet? Has anybody looked at the claims? Pass them around. You know, if you just claim
Plan on this every year.
budget. Yeah.
You know, that must be a new plan on that every year, or just continuation of the old one.
I move to approve the claims.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Mrs. Whittle. Any questions regarding the claims? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please, Amanda?
Barons,
Yes.
All,
Yes,
Whitlow,
Yes.
Sure.
Is there any old business to come before the committee this morning? Is there any new business? Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second? Mr. Hall? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is passed. Can we adjourn?